You're surrounded by people, or you were this week, and instead of feeling better, you felt worse. The room was full and loud and completely unreachable, and you didn't say anything because who says that out loud? I'm surrounded by people and I'm lonely. That sounds like something's broken. Jung had a name for what you're feeling, and it has almost nothing to do with how many people you have in the room. There are two kinds of loneliness. The first kind is the one we talk about, the kind that comes from absence. Not enough friends, not enough contact. A quiet apartment on a Friday night when everyone else seems to be somewhere. That loneliness has a relatively simple solution. Add people. More presence, more calls. The equation balances eventually. The second kind doesn't respond to that. If anything, it gets worse in crowds. You can be at a dinner party surrounded by people who genuinely care about you, who have known you for years, and feel more invisible than you would sitting alone in a dark room. You watch everyone around you laughing and connecting, and the laughter doesn't reach you. You're there, but you're watching it through glass. And here's what nobody tells you about that second kind. It's not a failure of connection. It's not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's not ingratitude, and it's not oversensitivity, and it's not something a better attitude would fix. Jung spent decades mapping this exact territory, and what he found goes a lot deeper than most people are willing to sit with. He borrowed the term from a French anthropologist named Lucien Lévy-Bruhl, participation mystique. The idea is this. Most social connection, for most people, operates on an unconscious frequency, an ambient emotional field. You walk into a room and you feel the collective mood without thinking about it. People relax at the edges. Boundaries blur slightly. And in that blur, there's a kind of belonging. Not something anyone chose or constructed, just something that happens automatically when people share space and a certain baseline of similarity. Most people access that without effort. They don't know they're doing it. It's just Tuesday night at a friend's place and the wine is good and nobody has to try too hard. The connection is already there, underneath, doing its work. But here's the thing. Some people can't get there anymore. Not because they're defective, because they've moved to a different frequency. And this is where it gets interesting. Jung's framework around individuation, the process of becoming genuinely, distinctly yourself, suggests that what you're describing might not be malfunction. It might be a sign that you've started to differentiate, that the unconscious merger everyone else is using to feel connected has become less available to you. Not because you've lost something, because you've gained something that makes the merger feel hollow. Individuation, in Jung's work, is essentially the slow and costly process of separating from the inherited patterns of your family, from the unconscious pull of the collective, from the persona you've constructed over the years for other people's comfort. Nobody finishes it, but partway through, something specific happens. You start to exit participation mystique. The automatic emotional channel, the ambient frequency, becomes less accessible. And instead of floating above the gap between surface connection and something real, you start to feel the gap. You walk into a room full of people having surface-level conversations, and it registers immediately. You can hear it. Most people can float above that indefinitely. You can't anymore. And that gap is lonely in a specific way. Not the lonely of an empty apartment, the lonely of being visible and unreachable at the same time. Stay with me here, because this is where Jung gets personal. Between 1913 and 1919, after his rupture with Freud, the end of the most significant intellectual friendship of his life, Jung went through what he later described as a confrontation with his own unconscious. By every external measure, he was surrounded by people, a family, patients who depended on him, colleagues who respected him, the structure of a full life. But internally, he was inaccessible. In memories, dreams, reflections, the autobiography he dictated near the end of his life, he describes that period as one of profound solitude. Not from absence, Not from anything anyone could have fixed by showing up more often. He was going somewhere that no one around him had a map for, and rather than run from it, rather than talk himself out of it or numb it or fill the silence with more people, he wrote it down. He drew it. He built what eventually became the Red Book, this massive hand-lettered illustrated account of what it felt like to go to an interior place that had no road signs. He treated his loneliness as information, a signal pointing toward something real. Not a problem to be solved. A territory to be mapped. That distinction matters more than I can explain quickly. I want to tell you about a party I went to about 2 years after my divorce. A good friend's place in West Asheville. People I'd known for a long time, music I liked. The kind of gathering where it should have been fine. And I spent most of the evening standing near a window with a drink I wasn't touching, watching everyone else. Not sorry for myself, exactly. Just unable to get there. The party was happening on a frequency I couldn't find. I could see the channel. I just couldn't tune to it. I drove home around midnight and sat down with memories, dreams, reflections. 3 a.m, read for 2 hours. And I felt less alone than I'd felt all evening, which makes no logical sense. I was by myself, in a dark apartment, reading the account of a man who died in 1961. And something in those pages was present in a way the party hadn't been. Something was meeting me where I actually was, instead of where I was supposed to be. The room with 40 people felt empty. The empty room felt full. I've thought about that night a lot since, about what it means that certain kinds of connection don't require presence, and that certain kinds of presence don't create connection. There's something Jung wrote in his later work about solitude, that it isn't the opposite of relationship. It's a precondition for a certain kind of relationship. The idea being that if you've never gone deep enough into yourself to actually know who you are, what you feel, what you need, what you're afraid of, what you value when no one's watching, then what you're doing in most social settings is merging, participation mystique, 2 people or 20 people blurring at the edges, which can feel like intimacy, and isn't quite. The loneliness you're describing, the kind that gets worse in a crowd, might be telling you something specific. It might be pointing toward the distance between where you actually are inside and where the people around you are. That's not a comfortable thing to hear, but I don't think it's a hopeless one. Here's what I think Jung would say if you sat across from him and told him this. He'd say your loneliness is accurate, that your nervous system is registering something real, a frequency mismatch, a depth gap, a situation where the channel everyone else is using doesn't carry what you need it to carry. You're not exaggerating. You're not being difficult. You're not ungrateful. You're just further in than the conversation around you. And then he'd probably say that the way through isn't a bigger crowd. It's going further in. Getting specific enough about your own interior, what's actually there, not what you've been told should be there, that you stop broadcasting on a frequency nobody's receiving and start transmitting something clear enough that the people who can actually hear it find you. They do exist, but they tend to find you after you've gone far enough into yourself that you know where you are. That doesn't happen on a timeline you can plan. It requires sitting with something uncomfortable for longer than feels reasonable, and the loneliness in the middle of it, the gap, the frequency mismatch, the room through glass. That's real. I'm not going to tell you it isn't. But the loneliness that comes from being on your way somewhere doesn't last forever. You're not broken for feeling this. You might just be further along than you realize. That's the thing worth remembering. Take care of yourself.